Welcome everyone to our next edition of CFO Club. Today we are very privileged to have with us Dr. Arun Singh, Global Chief Economist, Dun& Bradstreet. Arun has some insights which will be really useful for our CFOs. Welcome Arun on Dun& Bradstreet CFO Club.
Thank you, Noina.
Arun, we would start with the Unlock 5. What do you think that the Unlock 5 is for the economy? Do we see recovery? Do we see workplace mobilization, people coming back? How do you see Unlock 5 going to help in the economy?
Thank you, Noina, for that question. Because this is very critical time, and as I said, multiple forum and multiple people speak about this, and they use this one word, unprecedented, right? And this is, right use of that word for this context. And we have not seen this event probably in a century. The first time we have seen this issue in a century, and everyone is trying to recover from that. As a fortunate that government had implemented lockdown on right time, which prevented many people getting infected, which prevented many deaths, which prevented many issues around that. Now, last few months, with various version of unlock, government has tried to ease the restriction and open up the economy. Now with unlock 5, we have seen a significant relaxation across states, districts, and then smaller area, except the containment zone. Uh, Now, if you look at a macroeconomic parameter and then high frequency data, what we call alternate data. When I say alternate data, basically your pollution data, your chemical in the air, your traffic data, your mobility data, all are classified as alternate data. That basically give a very good signal about economic recovery. If you look at those parameters, let's say for example, traffic congestion data, mobility index, and then a hardcore macroeconomic parameter, let's say stock market parameters, index of industrial production and export, lately all these variables point towards the fact that economic activity is slowly, gradually approaching to the pre-COVID levels. Basically, we are going back to the level where we were in the February and before pre-COVID level, which means recovery is there. It's happening, but it's slow. This crisis was unique in that there were no one-off self-policy playbooks to deal with large-scale real economy freeze, which we have seen in last few months. So a resumption of economic activity is good for the overall economy and going forward. What this means at a micro level and for companies. Now, company have a hope to improve their revenue. They can expect there's a revenue growth coming in. In fact, the demand going up as a result of that revenue is expected to go up. However, there's a need to check, which means the consumer of yesterday's is no longer the same. Consumption pattern has changed. The consumer have changed. Therefore, companies need to find the new pockets of the demand and tap into such opportunities. If they continue to have same approach what they used to have pre-COVID level, they're not going to survive. The approach in the post-COVID era needs to be dynamically different. And in fact, that should be classified as the next normal or new normal for them to survive and grow the revenue.
So you are seeing a huge amount of consumer demand changing in the near future, is it? And any indication of which are the sector that you see a huge amount of business demands or consumer demands coming in?
So there are many sectors. Basically, we have IT, we have automobiles, we have consumer staples, we have
Pharma.
agrochemicals, we have a pharma. All these sectors are basically there's a buoyancy. There's a buoyancy around this one, and when I talk about agrochemicals and all set of consumer staples around the agriculture stuff is basically going to have a good future. It's not just there's a demand for that. Also, the three things happen. One, we had a timely onset of the monsoon, And the second, we had a good Kharif sowing season. And the third, we are expecting a good Rabi season. All these three factors is going to provide a good buoyancy for the fertilizer sectors, which basically agrochemical sectors. They are going to have a good, uh, uh, good demand in the near future to the long term. The second things, we have a consumer staples. Basically, consumer staples is inelastic, hence, it is not surprising to see early recovery of the sectors. But uh, these are the sectors we need to watch. For IT sectors, which I just mentioned, especially those engaged in the exports, are expected to see turnaround given the increased activities in large vertical like telecom, financial services, insurance around the world. Because these are the sectors, part of the services sector is going to grow irrespective of what's happening, second peak or slow recovery. These are the sectors where we have created a digital tool where people can work across any place. They don't need to go to the factory. They don't need to go to the offices. These are the basically sectors who have digitally penetrated well, and they're going to offer a very good opportunity going forward. Now, coming to the pharma, I think India is the one of the single country in the world who have shown resilience toward the pharma growth, and they were quick enough to manufacture some of the equipment suiting to the are appropriate for the COVID-19 care, and then post COVID-19 care. And India was one of the first country who did that one, and the success is basically is experienced by not just Indian counterpart, also their global piece. So I think as long as we are positioned in a right way, I think this sector is going to provide a much bigger scope to the company in that sector. That's one thing. Now, there's a gray area as well. For example, automobile sector. Unfortunately, automobile sector is not doing good job, and automobile sectors from economic sense is a two things. One, for some section of automobile, always consider as a what you call the leading indicator. Let's say, for example, car sales, passenger car sales is always taken, taken as a leading indicator for the economy. Truck sales are followed by the higher growth in the agriculture sectors, or also the coincident indicators. So agriculture provides some amount of flexibility, some amount of indication to the automobile sectors. But if you see within automobile sector, most of the Indians consider that as a luxury item, and that the demand for that is parked for the future. As long as there's recovery on their income, the demand for automobile sectors will not get traction in the near term, which means that might go up to 1 year or sometime beyond 1 year. Some segment of the automobile might go beyond a year of recovery. So these are the basically some of the sectors. There are many other sectors which will have a positive impact. Let's say all sectors who are providing a support to uh, digital connectivity at this point of time, at this point of the crisis, are going to have a good revenue growth, which means the company operating in these sectors should be able to take appropriate, should be able to frame their policy in a way that they are able to leverage the current scenario.
That brings me to the other question. You spoke about export, Arun. Export was green, in this month. So where do you see Indian exports going? You said that, IT, especially people who are involved into exports, are going to do well. So I want to know what is your take on exports?
See, as I said that with Unlock 5, we have seen a significant resumption in the economic activities. India was one of the first country who basically uh, went into the lockdown mode, and the production got disrupted. In other countries, the lockdown was not that severely impacted. For example, in a European country, if you go, the lockdown withdrawn, long time back, which means the economic activities there, the demand for international goods have gone up. But in economics, in economic practice, what we do, that we wait for at least 3 to 4 months of consistent data on those parameters to confirm any particular trend, either downward trend or upward trend. Now, we were not able to confirm the downward trend prior to COVID, even if coming down, less than 3 months, 4 months. Today, in the September 2020, we have seen export recover to the pre-COVID levels, but I think there's a time, and we need to wait and watch for at least couple of more months to confirm some of the trend. If I Why I'm saying, because if I have to look at some of goods, some of the items which basically we are exporting: iron ore, ready-made garments, rice, and drugs and pharmaceutical, where some of the major drivers of the export recovery, which means there's a 4 to 5 sectors was pulled you export out of negative zone to the much positive zone. In fact, the pre-COVID level. But that's a good story, and we need to wait whether all these 4 segment and the other segment are providing a consistent data. In fact, data in next 3 4 months, and that will basically firm our assessment that we are on a recovery phase from a export side. So that was from the goods export side. Now coming back to the services exports, and basically I was trying to mention about IT export, that is expected to strengthen coming months. And for the same reason, the economic activities in the telecom sector, financial services, and the insurance sectors around the world is likely to go up. And that will create a good demand from these economies. And we know that we are very good in IT export. In fact, we are one of the talent hub in those space who are exporting, and in fact our entire invisible, if you say, the good amount of share of services export is basically IT services. So IT services is going to have a very good future, and I think that's my journey begin now. And they will have a very good pre-COVID level type growth, whereas goods export, I think we need to wait for at least 2 more months. Maybe by end of November, we should be able to confirm the definitive trend on the exports front.
On that question, something comes up in my mind, Arun, that yes, you are saying that IT will be recovering. We see the IT index is, booming high. The stock market is already recovered, whereas in economy, you are saying that we will take another few months to get the data to understand really we are recovering or not. What is this disconnect between stock market and, the real economy? What is your
Yeah,
take on that?
no, that's a basically a very good question, and in fact that's a true. In fact, it took a little bit of time for most of the researchers to find out what is the reason behind that, and this happens. This happens in most of the time. This happens in the historical trend. We have seen that stock market value is different than the real economy, real ground economy, and this is true in some of the developing economy and underdeveloped economy, where you have a large amount of unorganized sectors. So there's a broad consensus that there is a huge disconnect between the stock market and the real economy. Uh, but there are many reasons for that. As I said, for developing economy, especially like India, and underdeveloped economy, where you have a large number of unorganized sectors. There are many reasons for that, but 3 reasons stands out very clearly. The first one is that this time the pandemic has impacted MSME sectors disproportionately, and informal sector. That impact is visible in the real economy. What we see the data, index of industrial production, the GDP, that is visible because MSME contribute 30% and the informal economy contributes significantly. So that's visible. But when you look at stock market, the rally in the stock market is primarily driven by the few large index in a constituents. We have a 30 Sensex market, and the maybe 5,000, 6,000 registered company are trekking into the rally, who are basically largely organized sector, and a less impact on them. The second point, stock market generally is a forward looking, and hence the rally could be because of a fact that there is extreme optimism about the future, of recovery from the COVID, and maybe the containment of the COVID in the economy, because there are many reasons, there's many theory across the world, and in fact a good case study about India as well as some of the economy, that how they manage their how they manage their COVID-19. Both side of argument are there, but there's a case study, and then most of the stock market really are riding on that optimism that we were able to contain that something. Whether that continue in the future, whether COVID control or not, that's time will tell. But that's optimism is playing into the picture right now, and that's responsible for the surge. The third factor is interest rate around the world, if you see, is declining, and declining sharply. You might have seen our own data point in India, and RBI is bringing it down. And in many countries, interest rates are actually near zero. In that scenario, your asset price goes up, and the people across across the spectrum of investment pool, they put into that space, because they know they're not going to get money in the deposit and then some other stuff, and basically the banks are bringing down the deposit rate and other savings rate. So it makes sense for them to put it money where they get good return, and that's third point. And in fact, within the third point, we have a fiscal stimulus measures what the basically government have provided since the start of the lockdown is also adding into that surge in the stock market. So there are many reasons, but these three reasons are basically the prime driver for the divergence between your economic growth and the stock market.
Arun, so the stock market is growing in its own way. Economy is inching towards, coming back to where it was. So for a CFO or a finance leader, how do you think, what kind of forecasting they should do to have a, foolproof forecasting? What are the tools they should apply in their forecasting?
Yeah. So I understand because this is extremely volatile environment. But basically, you might have heard about the VUCA world, and actually this is the testing of that phrase. And everything is there. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it is ambiguous. And everything, each alphabet of the VUCA is basically it's seen, and that applied to the CFO community as well, because they are front ending and they are basically leading their balance sheet for the company, and this is very critical for them, not just manage their client side receivable, also they need to manage the supply side disruption by managing their vendor. So basically one side you have a client management, and the other side you have a vendor management. So uh, in this pandemic, that's very critical and very important. And I do understand how a simple calculation error will lead to a huge forecasting variation when you talk about the cash flow, when you talk about revenue, and talk about the profitability. In that scenario, there are many area which CFO can address, but businesses should be aware of clients and the suppliers' financial health. That will provide a better understanding that what could be the future potential impact on their cash flow. When businesses operate with little or in fact no data at all on the health of the suppliers, the product shortage from the supply side can actually create a pain and actually create a supply side disruption. When there is a lack of visibility into client financial health, it's hard to know that which client will pay you on time or which client is likely to default. That's basically you need to have a data, you need to have information around the data on the vendor side about the supplier supplying ability, payment ability. Basically the businesses need to uh, think about it. If I have to put it simply, and in fact simply reacting to the signs of business deterioration in supplier and client base is not a foolproof method. It's not inadequate. In fact, it's inadequate way of accurately forecasting revenue. It's not just reacting to what's happening to your supplier, it's happening to your client. The need of R is proactively looking at the health of your supplier and health of your client to ensure that you're protected. How to do that? Businesses can, in fact, the CFO can help safeguard cash flow by obtaining insights on both company level and COVID-19 impacted, or maybe what you call COVID-19 network impact. There is a need to identify client and suppliers impacted by COVID-19 and its network. Once businesses are able to access, or maybe access the data and assess the potential level of disruption, it will help in managing risk to companies cash flow, growing pipeline revenue, profitability, and developing a risk based assessment of supplier, or supply chain. The idea is that the CFO can proactively look into their vendor, they look into the supplier, they look into client, and assess how risky these guys are, and in fact which location they are operating it out, whether the balance sheet got impacted, whether the sector they are operating is got impacted, whether they are going to sustain in the future. And once you zero on all these elements by using various tools available, once you zero on that, it will be, at least to some extent, you have enough information to forecast, which is basically not exact. I would not say maybe it's a sacrosanct, but that will ensure that it's a foolproof from a forecasting perspective. But you need to take a call on the data and analytics around the health of your supplier and a client.
So, Arun, you guys come up with the country insights, right? So, which has covers every country. So, I guess that the CFO should look at this kind of reports and figure out that, if their suppliers or vendors comes from any one of this country, how the location risk is coming in, right? And
Yeah,
obviously, Dun&
right.
Bradstreet and like other people have a lot of product which is risk management product to figure out, the data and analytics tool. So, you are asking a CFO to be more proactive than reactive in their decisions to be able to do correct foolproof
Exactly.
forecasting.
Exactly. Exactly.
Good. Thanks, Arun. With that note, we'll end today's interview. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope all the viewers have enjoyed this interaction. Thank you and bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Naina.